The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So Kevin Warsh is going to be the new man at the Fed, presumably. He is the appointee of President Trump, and he'll probably come very soon to the Senate Banking Committee for his hearings and tell us quite a bit about what he intends to do, and the whole world will be listening. Kevin Warsh, he's been on this radio show and on the TV show. He's a very good friend. But President Trump wants to know, why can't interest rates be lower? And my pal David Malpass, who's a former World Bank president and Treasury economist and Wall Street economist, wrote a pretty good piece not too long ago, the answer to Mr. Trump's good question about interest rates. So, David Malpass, welcome. I loved your piece. The thing is, I had Steve Myron on the TV show, and he talked about the same thing. But one thing Myron mentioned that I really thought interesting is it's important for Kevin Warsh to look forward, not backward. And the idea that the Fed, you hear this from Jay Powell all the time, data dependent, but those data points are old, right? They tell you the past, not the future. So is there a way out of this to look forward and bring rates lower?
Hi, Larry. Good morning. There is. It's going to take a lot of change in the Fed's core models. So you're exactly right. They have to look forward and think, what is their mandate, which is price stability and full employment, and what's wrong with the models that keep causing us to be way far off the mark? For 30 years, the Fed has missed the mark massively. Even last summer, by delaying the rate cut, Powell cost, I think, $100 billion to the economy by waiting from June until September to make that first rate cut. If it was needed, you could have done it in June. So they need to go through the models, and I think each one needs to be rethought. That's the quantitative easing model, the ample reserve model. One problem is the New York Fed is the keeper of these models, and they're the ones that came out yesterday and said reciprocity is a bad idea, and it falls onto consumers for the cost of trade. So you've got this core institution within the Fed, and if I recall, you worked there long ago. They haven't changed their models one day since you wrote them. Wrote them. That was almost the gold standard.
That was 1973. I was there 73, 74, and 75. I love it. That was a long time ago.
So they have to change the inflation model. They have to change the productivity and the limits to growth model. CBO came out this week, and their concept of potential GDP is just way wrong. They think you can add together the labor force plus the capital plus some kind of innovation and equal the potential GDP of the economy, and you're never going to get to the run rate that we need with those models.
You got to get rid of the basic point, which Kevin, Kevin agrees.
Great.
You can't. Growth doesn't cause inflation. And Trump is saying exactly the same thing. Said it in his Davos speech, said it in an op-ed piece he wrote for the Journal. He said it to me in my interview earlier last week. That was a great interview you did with him, and he was very clear on that. Yeah. And he believes Kevin, he expects Kevin to be on the same path, right? So, but this is what we've all said. You've been saying it. I've said it. Laffer said it. Moore, Forbes, all the supply-siders have said it. And now you've got this 1.7% or CBO says 1.8. Fed says 1.7 is the long-run potential to grow. No, it's not. We're already growing at almost 4. Under Trump's ideas and his policies. It's crazy.
And without inflation. But there's these core ideas within economics that are just wrong. One is that if you have inflation, you somehow treat it by higher interest rates rather than by policy reforms like the regulatory reform, the EPA reform that saved, that's worth $1 trillion right there. But economics also has this idea of there being a natural rate of interest, and which isn't right at all, because within the core of the economy, we can draw on savers from all over the world. There's not a limits to capital. They think there's a limits to growth rate, like at 1.8% or something, but they also seem to think that there's a limit to the amount of capital that will come into a good idea. But we've disproved that with AI. If you need $1 trillion or $2 trillion for SpaceX or for AI or for other innovations, it will come out of the woodwork. The whole world economy wants to beat a path to your door. And the Fed, that's simply not in their models. They have all these theories that there's some kind of magic natural rate, R star, that they build their models on. So
how about cut taxes, deregulate, keep the dollar steady, and Trump wants 15% growth. I love that, by the way. It could be over 3 years. He didn't specify which year. But his point is he's an optimist, right, David? And he's saying we should not limit growth. And that's really his message. And I think he's 1,000% right on that. Anyway, folks, David Malpass, the answer to Trump's good question about interest rates. Wall Street Journal, January 27th, 2026. Go have a look at it. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and take a look at this whole DHS mess. I'm Kudlow. Stay with us, please.
Thanks for listening to The Larry Kudlow Show. You can hear The Larry Kudlow Show Saturday mornings at 10. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?